Like, it's one thing to neg your partner just in the confines of your own home, but then to do it and put them down in front of other people is just totally bonkers.
What could make me feel jealous is if you were feeling compersion for her being with somebody else.
Because it's not just the couple fulfilling their fantasy. This is also most likely and hopefully a massive fantasy for the unicorn as well.
Am I married to a bull?
Maybe.
My name is Abby.
And my name is Liam, and you are listening to the Evolving Love podcast.
In this podcast, we deep dive into the topics of non-monogamy and relationships, drawing from our experiences of being consensually non-monogamous for over a decade.
Whether you're monogamous, polyamorous, curious, or anything in between, we invite you to join us for this conversation.
Let's begin. Before we begin today's episode, I would like to share that I have another women's retreat coming up from the 25th until the 27th of October in the beautiful Yass Valley at Heart Space Retreat. It is going to be a really special weekend. If you would like any more information about this, please do send me an email at evolvingloveproject@gmail.com and I will send you all of the information about this very special women's retreat. Okay, here we are for another ELP podcast.
Another episode. We took a little week off and we've had a great few weeks.
We have, and we had an amazing weekend.
We did. We went up to Festival of Dangerous Ideas up in Sydney at Carriage Works, which was just an amazing chance to see some really brilliant thinkers.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. We saw a bunch of talks. I think my favourite one was The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, the producers from that, Megan Phelps-Roper and Andy Mills. They were amazing.
And of course, Megan Phelps-Roper, for those who don't know, was ex-Westboro Baptist Church. So some really crazy stuff going on there, but she ended up leaving the church and now has done some incredible things. Appeared on a bunch of podcasts, Sam Harris and the like, and obviously produced the most recent kind of hit podcast, Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, which is a really nuanced look into gender identity and lots of fascinating things. So yeah, it was amazing to see them live. And we also saw Waleed Ali and Stan Grant. Yeah, just some amazing thinkers, just so many incredible thinkers in one space.
Yeah, my brain was full. I was feeling incredibly dangerous after the weekend.
Yes. Well, we were saying as we were watching it, it would be amazing one day to do our own. We did go see Josh Zepps and Coleman Hughes. They did a live podcast recording. And I thought, I could imagine doing this. This would be fun. Yeah,
well, I was actually surprised that they didn't have any relationship-focused talks happening to my knowledge, unless I missed it. I do know that Chris Ryan, he did one at the Opera House for Festival of Dangerous Ideas back maybe over 10 years ago, I think. That was when I first...
Yeah, he headlined
12 years ago,
the Festival of Dangerous Ideas and did the Opera House, which is when it was there. Now it's at Carriage Works. We did have some friends. We stayed with some amazing friends of ours and they did go to see a lecture that we weren't able to see because we were seeing something else, but they saw one on masculinity, which was apparently really fascinating. And they absolutely loved it. So we missed that one. So there was a few things like that, but there wasn't any dangerous relationship ideas.
No.
So
no.
maybe that's the moment.
Yeah, we shall see. I wanted to talk a little bit about recommendations for people. I feel like this is something that comes up a little bit. People are often saying, how do we meet people? Or I'm on field or this or that or the other.
Yes.
And, recommendations. Now, there is a responsibility, I feel, that comes with recommending somebody in this space. You're not recommending a restaurant. You're not recommending where you should go if you're visiting another city.
Yes.
It's like an incredible responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally now with my own dating, it's really only like recommendations or there has to be some sort of connection. There needs to be a link to somebody else. Somebody needs to be vouched for.
Yes.
I feel.
Well, the chances are the smaller a city you live in, and we do live in a small city, the chances of someone having already dated a friend in the non-monogamous scene is quite high. Let's be honest.
That's really interesting. How do you feel about this? Like, if you're dating somebody but they've dated a friend or somebody who's a close sort of connection with us, like how do you feel about it?
Well, I think I feel slightly different maybe to how you feel. I actually love it when friends of mine have dated someone that I've dated because I love the I love almost the camaraderie of, this kind of, connected network of friends and lovers.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally love it. I don't know if I've done it that many times.
I am not a huge fan of it. I like to keep things a little bit separate unless we meet through a dating. How does it work? Well, it's not like being possessive over connections or anything like that. It's more of a privacy thing for me. And I think sometimes if it's like my close friends or like my close platonic friendships, I just like to have a little bit of privacy, because the reality is that people do talk. As much as everybody is saying you never say anything and we need to be so, everything's on complete lockdown and there's no sharing of anything, people talk. And I know this because people tell me things.
Yes.
I don't necessarily share, but I hear a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm very private about my own connections.
Yes.
Or if I'm dating somebody, I wouldn't like, and then if they were dating someone else and then other people know my private business, even if they're a friend, I like to know.
You like to have the separation.
I like to have the separation and choose what I will or will not share with friends, because I don't share everything with my friends.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I have never been like that with my friends. So it's never been an issue. So maybe it's not something that I think about, because all of my friends, there's that stereotypical bro culture where it's kind of like locker room bragging, where everyone's like, oh, look at this girl that I've been with, or look at this, and
that's very cringe.
It is pretty cringe, but it does happen a lot in a lot of male-centered friendship groups. And for me, that's never really been that much of a thing. So it's just not really in my consciousness. But I feel like naturally, all of your friends, all of your female friends, just naturally talk, a lot about experiences. There's like a very open communication. Like your friends will compare notes, whereas my friends have never really done that.
Well, not really comparing notes, not in like a judgy sort of or like super detailed way or anything like that. But
yes.
I mean, it's like any type of friend is going to sit around and talk about their dating life, whether they're monogamous or whatever. And that's the same for non-monogamy too. It just gets a little bit tricky when the social circles are a little bit small.
Yes.
So
well, it's tricky when you want to be sensitive of your connection with the partner, for instance, and then you're talking with a friend and if they had a connection with your partner, that could be very difficult, because you're also managing what to share, what might upset them, oversharing, not oversharing. Like there's a lot of delicate things to think about.
For sure, especially when there's a line between asking for some sort of advice or support from a friend and then breaking the confidence of somebody else. I think that, your partner's confidence, I think that can be when it becomes really tricky if you need some advice.
Definitely. And then it could be just a question of just picking which friends you talk to.
Yes.
Like maybe it's because the reality is the more we're around and the longer we live, the more connections are going to have inevitably happened between different people. So you could essentially be narrowing the possibilities of your dating pool exponentially as you get older. Have you thought about that?
But I'm still meeting people.
You are, but it's going to get progressively harder if it's like, are you talking about just current relationships that your friends have, or people in the past that your friends might have dated?
I think I'm talking current. The people who I really stay in touch with a lot, who I've dated over the years, are people that are not connected to my social circles, like my friendship social circles. They're usually interstate or overseas.
Yes, yeah.
That's usually where the longest connection will live for me, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's all...
Maybe there's an eroticism in the separateness of it all.
I think so, because I like to have some things that are just private.
Yes.
And I think that this can be surprising because I do share a lot with my writing and on the podcast. But I absolutely do not share everything at all, of course. I think a lot of the times we're sharing about general topics or we're sharing about things from quite a while ago.
And speaking of recent things, we did have a very interesting thing that happened very recently. Well, not too recently, I guess within the last month, that we thought might be an interesting thing to examine within this podcast setting. And that was a recent advance that you fielded through your Instagram DMs.
This is funny because it's really on that topic, coming back to recommending somebody. So I feel quite comfortable talking about this, and I feel like we don't often share in this way, but I do feel comfortable sharing about this because in the interactions that I've had with this person, I can tell that he has never, ever listened to our podcast and he has never read any of my writing. And I think he
That's
just has
a safe assumption.
And I think he just has no idea. So I feel pretty comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I think the chances of him listening to this episode are very minute.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
So, okay, back to the recommendations.
Okay.
So he is somebody that I knew a long time ago, 20 years ago. We never had a thing. I think we had a flirtation back in the day. Anyway, we've gone our separate ways. We've had other relationships with people. I'm married. Has a partner. Anyway, he recently found me on Instagram and messaged me and was just like, wow, like, this is all sort of, amazing and a little bit new for us, but we're exploring something or other. It's not his wife. I think it's maybe a new girlfriend. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, definitely not his wife.
No.
Yeah.
So very excited. Then he was going to come to Canberra and he said, do you have anyone that you can recommend for us?
Yes.
Basically a unicorn. Like, is there somebody for us?
Yeah. He was asking you for like a hookup. Like, do you have a Refidex of unicorns that you could just send my way?
Now, this was funny because, of course, I know a lot of non-monogamous women, but it's like I can't vouch for him whatsoever. Totally. Yes, like knowing somebody is not enough to vouch for somebody in this kind of context, I feel. You need to really know them as a friend or how they are intimately, how they behave. Like, I have no idea. I don't know if he's going to get completely drunk and they're going to go out for dinner and have 3 bottles of wine and then carry on and be weird or anything like that. I just have no idea. So I can't vouch.
Yes.
So I definitely was not going to, say, oh, yeah, meet my friend.
To recommend a solo, in this case female, to go into a situation as a unicorn, it's also very vulnerable for them. So there's so much weight on a recommendation from us or from you to that particular solo female that it's so important that they're in a super safe environment. And of course, if you don't know them completely, like if you can't vouch for someone completely, then you just really shouldn't be vouching for someone. Like exactly. To the solo female.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. It's such a responsibility for the safety of the person.
Yes.
And the care and just, like if we're connecting some people, you want it to be amazing and you want to know for sure. I mean, not to put pressure on the situation, like it has to be amazing, but I mean who they are as people, how they'll be treated from the very beginning until the end or whatever happens.
Yeah. And you do have a good idea of how things will play out just through intuition.
I do.
Yes.
But also we don't play matchmaker.
No,
we don't do it.
We're very actively trying not to matchmake. There's often times where we think, especially with conversation nights and things like that, we think, oh yeah, I could imagine like these guys being a mad vibe. But then we just stay out of it. So this particular person had reached out to you, had asked for a unicorn recommendation.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And so I didn't get back to him.
You just didn't reply.
I just didn't reply.
Yeah, it's like, what are you supposed to say?
I'm busy. And sometimes that's just, it's not a personal thing. Yeah. The DMs, things come in like,
You get a lot of DMs.
I do get a lot of DMs. Yeah. So I didn't reply. And then a week later, he messaged me and said, we came, it was so hard to meet someone, and then said, look, I think it's going to have to be you. And I was thinking, what? Is this him asking me out or to join them? It was very baffling.
It was like saying, basically, they had tried to secure a unicorn. Essentially, that's what had happened. They'd either come to Canberra and they'd thrown their fishing rod out into the unicorn stream and hoping to catch a unicorn in the stream. No one had bitten. No one had taken the bait. And then suddenly, because they weren't successful in their fishing expedition, suddenly you now have to be the fish.
Yeah, it really didn't land with me. It did not land. I hated getting that message. I felt so uncomfortable.
Right.
And I was trying to think, is this like a negging situation? Like maybe he thinks I get a lot of messages or people are saying, oh, you know, I like this photo of you or something. And he's thinking, I'm going to be different. I'm going to say, look,
you're the last option.
You're the last option. It's just going to have to be you. And I hate negging. I don't find it funny.
We are such unbelievers in the process of negging. Like I absolutely hate negging with a passion.
And I
think it's probably the thing that annoys me more than anything.
Oh, you hate it.
Yeah, I really hate it.
Oh, you just hate it. And I hate it too. And I hate it I hate it in the messages or if, you know, and even in really subtle ways. If somebody starts and then I'll be like, Liam, this person's negging me. And you're like, oh, for those, we need to describe, maybe not everybody knows what negging means.
I presume people do, but let's get into the definition.
I think negging, from what I remember, I think it sort of came about with the book, The Game, or something like that's sort of what comes to mind. It's like when you know, there's somebody who you're attracted to and instead of being friendly and, you know, complimentary or asking them out and sort of really forthcoming with them, you start sort of paying them out.
You start putting them down.
You start putting them down. You start like, you know, you sort of like showing no interest or putting them down but then a little bit of interest. Like it's a bit sort of game playing, I think.
Yeah. And the idea is that you are being hard to get and eventually this will increase the person's desire for you to an insurmountable level at which they will give in and hook up with you.
Yeah.
And I think it does, interestingly, I think this tactic does work. And I've seen it work before. And presumably some people are into negging. It's not like, you know, no one's into negging because it does genuinely work. But I do think that when I've seen those situations work, at best the interaction will be fleeting. Like maybe you do hook up with someone or maybe, you know, something does happen. But who wants to be with someone who's negging them for a longer period of time?
It's so bizarre. I see it in married couples.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
There's a few that I know. There's a few women, we're not close friends now, but from many years ago. And I remember this paying each other out, yeah, it's so weird. And they sort of laugh and they're paying each other out. It's a bit, I remember someone called one of my friends, she was pregnant at the time and he was like, why would I want to be with her? Look at her, she's a mountain goat right now.
Yeah, I mean,
do you remember that?
I remember that very clearly.
I nearly fell off my chair.
Well, I was angry.
She was awkwardly laughing but uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that particular person was just, you know, just awful in general. And I think witnessing a negging situation was one of those situations where it just was confirmation bias at a certain point. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be even subtle. I've seen people comment on their partner's weight, and that really upset me. Like a comment on male partner's weight. Like it goes both ways. It's not just male partners talking about their female partner's weight. It can go both directions, and it's like it's so uncomfortable, especially in the presence of other people. Like it's one thing to neg your partner, you know, just in the confines of your own home, but then to do it and put them down in front of other people is just totally bonkers.
Can't think of anything more strange than the thought of like deliberately trying to embarrass you in front of friends or people or in any social setting.
Well, I mean, people do it for humor. It's like a cheap, awkward laugh.
Yeah, we don't connect with those people.
So the negging thing, you know, all of this to say is that don't neg us.
Yeah, so I was being negged. It was like, oh, it's going to have to be you.
I think you were being negged.
And I think that day also, I think I was having a bad day. I wasn't feeling very good.
Yeah, I don't know if you were premenstrual, but I think some stuff was going on, and then you were just like, it was the icing on the shitty cake.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things. I was like, how dare he feel like he can speak to me like that? How dare he think that he can joke with me about that? Like, yes, I knew him from 20 years ago, but I don't know him and he doesn't know me. And it just really didn't feel good. And then I didn't respond. And then he was messaging saying, like 2 days later saying, have I upset you? Something. I'm just thinking, I don't want these messages. I don't want messages now saying, I've upset you or, are you mad? Like, I was just like, go away. But I did end up, I replied to him. I said, look, I think, we're both looking for different things and we're not really in alignment, but, I wish you all the best.
Well, you were very nice.
Of course.
But I must admit, when you told me about that message, I was quite upset by it because it was also the presumptuousness of it as well. Really shit me.
For sure. Well, there had also been no mention of you or asking any questions about our dynamic or what this. Yeah. It was just sort of like had come across my Instagram, connected with me, saw that I was non-monogamous and was just like, oh, well, you do threesomes or like you have sex in group. Like, I just don't know what he was thinking, but it was feels like a very baseline sort of approach.
And all of that is true. Like, you do have threesomes.
I do.
You do have sex, but it's so silly to assume that just being non-monogamous means that it's open game.
Well, it was like he had no awareness that I'm a discerning person and I will hook up with people when it's like a connection and I'm into it and I'm feeling it and the vibes are right and there's something that's happening behind, like beyond just the physical act of having sex that really doesn't sort of interest me so much now, like sex just sort of for sex. There has to be some form of connection. Now, I don't mean we have to be becoming each other's partners or long-term lovers or something, but it's like that is all part of the beauty of connecting with someone is like cultivating desire with them and getting to know each other, asking questions, being curious, like asking about someone's past, like that is all a part of it. And I just felt like everything had been bypassed.
Yes.
And it's like, well, you'll have to do or something.
Yeah. Well, how would it have gone in a perfect scenario, not with this particular person, because I think this particular person was never going to successfully accomplish what he was trying to accomplish if that was getting you to be a unicorn. But what is a way that it would have worked?
Okay, so in the context of me joining a couple.
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that has not happened very often for me.
No, it's been a rarity.
Very, very rare. I would say that if we're ever in a threesome dynamic, it's usually together.
Yeah.
Last year, and I think maybe this might come as a surprise to some people listening, but last year was the first time that I had ever joined a couple, and that I had ever been, a unicorn. And it was amazing. And they're such dear friends of ours.
Yes.
And I have such a connection with them. And the whole situation was so exciting and fun.
Yep.
And the way that they approached me was so open, like really just open, but like lots of room for me to not want, in case, like lots of room for me to say no, which is really important.
And this is in the lead up.
Yes. Like, and I feel like we've also been like this.
To keep on listening to this premium episode of the Evolving Love podcast, you can sign up to our premium subscriber feed at evolvingloveproject.substack.com.
Paid subscribers receive 2 extra podcast episodes each month and access to my full writing archive. So if you would like to gain exclusive access, you can sign up at the link in the show notes or at evolvingloveproject.substack.com.